Here. Admiral, thank you so much for the work that you all have been doing in the Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, and you and I have had several encounters in both good and bad times, and I'm grateful for the support that you've given to the people of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico as well. Following the passage of the Bipartisan Budget Act for the fiscal year 18, the administration delivered a wish list of how it would want to have that funding spending. I guess my question to you would be, is that reflective of where the Coast Guard most needs additional funds for the rest of fiscal year 18?
Yes, ma'am. And what I'm most encouraged by is the supplemental relief that we're seeing, especially from Hurricanes Irma and Maria. As you well know, the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, these are Coast Guard communities as well. And so when you see the Coast Guard is still there as these communities are still trying to get back on their feet, these are Coast Guard families in that very same predicament as well. So what the supplemental relief does is, rather than build a house out of straw, let's build one out of brick and mortar. In other words, let's harden these facilities so they can withstand at least a Category 3 hurricane. We made a similar investment out at Great Nagua with our hurricane hangar out there. It experienced 155-knot winds during Hurricane Irma. It sustained no damage whatsoever. So we need to use these dollars and invest smartly, because we are in the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico for the long haul. These are Coast Guard communities as well, and we are proud to be part of those communities.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you, the majority of the illegal contraband is being interdicted in the Eastern Pacific, but you know there's a significant drug smuggling threat that reaches the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico from South America. How will the additional national security cutters and the future offshore patrol cutters defend against this threat? And do you believe that it's the sufficient amount and the appropriate number? Would you want more vessels to be able to take on this threat in that area?
Yes, ma'am. So numbers do matter, and the National Security Cutter has clearly been a game changer. We're seizing nearly a ton of cocaine a day, and that's between the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean, and in the Eastern Pacific today. What has changed in the last year is we've seen a significant decrease in the number of Cuban migrants attempting to cross the Florida Straits. We have a fleet of offshore fast response cutters home ported in San Juan, and we've been able to repurpose those ships and apply a lot more pressure on the approaches to Puerto Rico, to the Dominican Republic, and to the U.S. Virgin Islands for shipments that are leaving the Guajira Peninsula on a direct run, because the flow rate coming into Puerto Rico right now has gone up over 30%. And
it's grown over 30%?
It's grown over 30% over the last 2 years. It's not staying in Puerto Rico. It's being transshipped elsewhere, to include the U.S. Virgin Islands and to include the continental United States as well. So we are repurposing resources, all this based on intelligence. And is it the sufficient amount that you need to be able to address this increasing threat in the area? The U.S. will never get in front of this problem by itself, which is why we need allies. The interagency is contributing as much. And as many ships as we put out there, what we soon run out of is surveillance aircraft, which is why we're looking and experimenting with land-based UAS. We've done a couple of prototypes out of Puerto Rico as well. We need to look at state-of-the-art sensors to put into these unmanned aerial systems, but the intelligence is good. We do not have enough ships or aircraft to be fully effective in this mission. Thank you. Administrator Busby, thank you so much, sir, for your service. And I wanted to ask you, with regard to the Maritime Administration, can you tell us what, if any, activities or support that your agency and your group, particularly your Ready Reserve Forces and your own fleet, were able to provide during the hurricane season in the Caribbean?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. We're very proud to play a significant role, clearly not as significant as the Coast Guard, who are heavily involved. But we had 3 of our school ships and 1 of our Ready Reserve Force ships active, participating in hurricane relief for all 3 hurricanes. We were active in Texas, we were active in the Gulf Coast, in Florida, and most heavily in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands.
Because I know that one of the issues that we had on the islands was that the inability to have cargo particularly food relief, and others come in. I know that most of your support is not related to those things, but related to military equipment. But could your fleet also be used to support the additional food and other supplies and equipment that were needed in places like Puerto Rico and elsewhere?
Well, actually, our Jones Act fleet of commercial ships, we had 24 ships that were providing support to Puerto Rico throughout the thing. So there was plenty of capacity. But to directly answer your question, yes, there is additional capacity that could be brought into play with our reserve ships to augment that should it be necessary.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Chair's going to recognize